Okay, we are
Oh,
now.
Paul is in as an attendee.
Yep, I'm gonna switch him.
Do we have any public here?
We do not.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Paul. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, it's my pleasure. Good to see everyone.
Great. So we're all here. So this is the regular meeting of the Valley Green Energy Working Group. We are the working group that works on, makes determinations for the Valley Green Energy Community Choice Aggregation. And today we are joined by Paul Gromer, who was the consultant for that effort. So thank you all for being here. Typically we start with the minutes, but because Paul is here, I'm thinking we can move that vote to the end, if that's okay with folks.
Sure.
In the interest of Paul's time, we do not have any public, so there is no one for public comment. So we could launch right into updates from Paul. And Paul, if you want to start off with your question first for Pelham, feel free to begin with that.
Yes, so great. So thanks for that, Stephanie. So I had sent Stephanie, I think Stephanie circulated the annual report that VGE needs to file to the DPU. Just wanted to confirm with you guys it was okay if I went ahead and filed that. I will say the report includes a DPU specified table of numbers, which is largely unintelligible to anybody but them. So I won't be surprised if you don't really have any particular comments on these numbers. And I'll give you a quick, as we talk, sort of synthesis of them that will make them a little bit more meaningful.
Yeah. Well, I certainly support your filing it.
Same.
Yes, and same.
Great, thank you. I'll send that in later this afternoon. Just to complete the story on that, ours is going in a little later than the others because the report includes data that we get from the utilities. When National Grid sent me the data for all the towns I work with, they neglected to include Northampton, just an oversight. It was a brand new program. I flagged it for them. It just took them a long time to go back and redo the exercise, bringing Northampton in. So through nobody's fault, minor oversight. We're a little late, but we'll get it in, and then we'll be done. So I did not a big thing, but I put together a couple of slides, Stephanie, with numbers. If it works, I'll just share my screen and we can walk through those and talk about what's up.
Sure.
So I'll share this and make it bigger. Can you guys see those tables there?
Yep, perfect.
So these tables come from the DPU annual report. They're based in part on our data of number of accounts in the program, and then numbers that the utilities provide, from which we calculate the number of basic service customers and the number of competitive supply customers. They don't provide those numbers directly. We have to make some calculations to present them. I've presented two different tables, the first with residential accounts and the other with all accounts. And in both cases, we're showing the percentage breakdown across the different types of electricity supply: Valley Green Energy, utility basic service, and independent competitive supply. The more useful one to look at is the residential table. The all accounts, of course, includes non-residential. The percentage of non-residential accounts that participate in the basic option, the various options, is driven a lot by the size of those accounts, which varies, of course, by community. So not tremendously helpful. Residential customers are more homogeneous, and so it's more interesting to look at those. What we see is that about 60 to 77% of accounts in the communities are in Valley Green Energy. There's on the order of 15% are on basic service, and then on the order of about 23% on competitive supply. We do see that Pelham has a negative percentage of accounts on basic service, That's in part because we had to calculate these numbers, as I said, from utility data that was a little bit different. I also think it may show a minor flaw in the way Wamiko presents the data. Not a fixable thing, but I think that's what we're seeing there. I'll tell you how these numbers compare to other towns. It's
Oh,
really,
can I just interrupt 1 second? I
Sure.
think Ben had a question for you.
oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had the question, how is anyone on basic service if it's an opt-out
Hmm.
situation?
So when the program launches, the customers that are in that automatic enrollment pool are only the customers on basic service. So anybody who's already on competitive supply doesn't get opted in automatically. They're free to join the program, but they have to take an action to do so. So you always start, all programs start with, however many customers were on competitive supply before you started. Basically, they're on competitive supply going forward. And then, of course, there's a little migration back and forth between the program and competitive supply with.
Right, that's not the one I'm concerned about. Like competitive supply, yeah, I understand we got to find the people and convince them, and in some cases, maybe they've got a great deal. I don't know. But basic service, at least in Northampton, where there's no reason why you would opt out of VG. How come there's anybody on basic service? That's my
Yes.
question.
So that's a good question. So people do opt out, on the order of 10%, average across communities opt out, for a variety of reasons. For some people, it's philosophical. They don't want to buy, the city or town to get involved in their electricity. Some people just don't like change. So you have some number of people who opt out. And then what you always have in these numbers is customers that are in transition. So when a new account is opened, they go on to basic service to start. That's the DPU rules. They start there. So they're on basic service to begin with. Then about once per quarter, opt-out letters go out to all those new accounts. If they don't opt out, they become part of the program. But that process takes, it's once a quarter to send the mailings. It takes a few weeks to get the mailings out the door. Customers then get 30 days to decide. So you've got sort of like 4, 5, 6 months of just transition customers who are on basic service now, which inflates those basic service numbers. Adele?
Question, does the table from all accounts include the municipal buildings?
Yes, it does. So, and I imagine in most communities, those are on competitive supply contracts. So those would be in the totals there.
Okay. Thank you.
It is normal, like the typical split is actually pretty close to where Northampton is for most communities. They're around 65 to 70% in the program, and then the other customers split more or less evenly between basic service and competitive supply. Amherst is showing a little lower percentage in the program. I think that's because of one or two or maybe both reasons. One is that communities that have a high student population tend to have more account turnover, which puts more customers in that transition status that we talked about a minute ago, inflating basic service. I know we see that in Cambridge all the time, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing the same thing in Amherst. So I think that's a factor. And then it also might in part be something to do with the way Wamiko reports the numbers, because the other community in Wamiko that we work with similarly has a seemingly slightly lower percentage of customers in the program than normal. So I think it's a combination of those two. So I'd say the headline from these slides, while there are a lot of numbers here, the headline is sort of normal, the way these are pretty normal, the way these numbers break out. Other than the negative 5% basic service customers in Pelham, that's an unusual thing. The other thing, I can just move, and then if we want to talk about this more, we can go back. The other slide I created was to look at the number of accounts by program option. And I should say the last slide was numbers as of the end of December, because that's when we get the utility numbers. Those are December numbers. Here I did our most current numbers, which are as of July. And here we see, actually, if we look at percentages, Amherst and Northampton are really quite similar in their split, and not untypical really, with the great majority of customers on the standard product, a small percentage opting up to 100% green, and a slightly larger percentage than that opting down to basic. Pelham, interestingly, has more customers making choices other than the standard, both more on 100% green and more on basic. I don't know, Bob, whether that has to do with the nature of the customers in Pelham, or whether it's just a function of small numbers versus big numbers, and a couple of customer accounts, one way or the other, makes more of a difference in Pelham than it does for the others. The other observation I'll make about this slide, comparing it to other communities, as I said, the percentages are pretty similar. With regard to 100% green, to get a higher opt-up rate requires typically a big marketing push by the communities. The communities that have higher numbers really market the 100% green product. And then, at least what we've seen elsewhere, is that the percentage of basic customers tends to increase over time. And I don't know exactly why that's true, but it definitely is true. I mean, it could be maybe, every time the program changes suppliers, customers get another letter about the program explaining their options. And we always get a chunk of customers switching to basic when those letters go out. Even if the standard program price is very attractive compared to basic service, you put the choices in front of customers, many of them just opt for the lowest price one.
What is the highest percentage in 100% green that you've seen, and what do you know about the effort that was put into gaining that?
Yeah, so the two communities we work with that have the highest percentage are Lincoln, the town of Lincoln, which is a small community, which has the highest, on the order of 10%, and then Newton, which isn't that high, but is smaller than average. In Lincoln, it was a lot of one-on-one marketing by sustainability committee members. It's a very small community. Everybody knows everybody. They have a very engaged sustainability committee, and they, reached out directly to friends and colleagues, went to the transfer station on Saturdays, and, the places where people gathered, and it was really sort of citizen to citizen outreach. Newton, a little different, much bigger community, of course. The biggest factor there seems to have been that the mayor was very personally involved in encouraging customers to opt up. And by personally involved, I don't mean she was going door to door, but she did a number of communications to all the residents, encouraging them to do it. And then they also did have a campaign. They did door hangers. I think they involved kids from the high school to be the ones to go door to door and deliver the hangers, things like that. And that got a bigger percentage there. Other communities have tried. Even those that have tried have found it's a challenging thing. Acton has worked pretty hard at it, but is more like maybe 4% as compared to Lincoln's 10%. And Cambridge tries very hard from time to time, but they're just so big. There's so many accounts there, and there's so much account turnover in Cambridge that they've had a hard time getting the percentage over about 2%.
I just wanted to make a comment too, that I think we have to keep in mind our population and the fact that Amherst has a very high percentage of people at or below poverty level. So I think that's probably the biggest indicator of why our numbers are where they are. Thanks, Paul. More questions for Paul, or Paul, do you have more to say about this?
No, I actually don't have anything more to say, but I'm happy to answer any other questions if there are there. Not too much earth shattering here. Again, like the sort of the headline message from both of these slides is that the program is moving along in moving along well. Things are going well, and it looks like what we would expect.
And Paul, do we have any more idea of when we'll get names and addresses of customers who are on competitive supply so that we can reach out to them?
Yes, so there is a mechanism now where we can do that, and I can get those names and addresses from the utilities for you. So if that's what I just need to ask you to ask me to do it. So if that's something you'd like, I'll submit those requests, and we'll see how quickly the utilities turn them around. But they're required now to provide the names and addresses for the competitive supply customers.
Great.
And then the question is of, when we're in receipt, does that become public information?
I have an answer for that one. And
Okay.
the answer is no.
Great.
So I talked with Alan Wolf, our mayor's chief of staff, who does all the public records request stuff. And he says, no, we are obligated to redact identifying information about the public, or, about individuals, as opposed to public officials or other entities. So
Okay, so we can't, so that means that we cannot share that out with other groups.
we cannot share identifying information. In other words, we have a responsibility to protect the people
Right.
that are there, including we can possess it, and there can be a public records request, and those things have to be redacted.
Right. So, yeah, that's my point. That's the point I was trying to make.
Okay, yeah,
Great.
So, okay.
but
Well, if
in the-
local energy advocates wanted to help with the outreach, would we be able to?
I think if we changed the mailing, if we somehow had a mailing that said reach out to like some number or some website for or whatever for local energy advocates, then the customer could reach out to you, right? But we couldn't just give
Oh.
some
Yeah, we,
entity like you, just like, oh, here's a bunch of addresses of people who you should cold call and bother.
I think that's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah.
Was that we can give like some aggregate data from that, but we can't necessarily provide the list with the contact information.
But like the
But-
original mailing, right, that went out to the people who were on the list who are basic service, those mailings are sent out by Paul's group, correct?
Yes.
Yes, or that's strictly speaking, actually, the electricity supplier does it. We're involved in managing and creating the lists.
So Paul, go ahead, Ben, I'm sorry. I'm gonna
Well, I was
ask.
gonna ask the same
Go
follow-up.
ahead.
So if we ask you, hey, Paul, we formally request that you request from the utilities the identifying information for the people on competitive supply, can you then take that information, hand it over to, I guess I've forgotten, is it First Point, and say, please do another mailing with this list?
So I'd say yes, yes, no. From a confidentiality perspective, yes, because they're bound by a confident to keep all program-related information confidential. So I would think that they're like a partner of the city, so the city could share this data with them, and they have access to similar data on the program side. I think First Point would be willing to do it. I don't think they would do it for free, though. Because it's not in their contract to mail to the customers on competitive supply. And while there's some benefit to them from doing it, because it would bring more accounts into the program, when this has come up before, suppliers have taken the view, well, there might be some benefit, but it's probably not enough for us to cover the cost of the mailing. We could ask them, though, for sure. I mean, I'm in a bit assuming what they would say. I could ask if they would be willing, if you'd like them to do a mailing where, you specify what the letter says, it's a letter from them, but they just execute a mailing for you. I can ask if they would do that.
And
Also, Paul, could you ask
the
what the fee
mailing?
would be what would the fee be if they do,
Yes.
if they are willing to do it? I'm sorry, go ahead,
Basically-
Bob.
Basically, so what we have is we can request a list, we get a list, we need an updated mailing opt-in card, which is essentially whatever you're sending out on the regular basis with the regular mailing. And we just need to know who's the cheapest mailing service provider. Is it First Point or some other one we select? And then we just mail it. I mean, like, that's our first step, is just do those mailings to the people who didn't get them.
And that's one of the ways, questions I was going to ask is, at First Point is an option for those letters. Are there other options that we could pursue? Ben just referred to other mailing services. I don't know whether that's something that, we can do, Valley Green Energy can do.
Well, I would think that it could be done from each municipality. And so, like, our Northampton sends out water bills and tax bills. We have a mailing service that basically everything's uploaded to. So there's a contract in existence. I'm not in the office where I can ask my procurement officer, but generally there are pre-vetted contracts with blanking on the word, but that where we'll know what the rate is. And so we just need to know what would First Point charge us.
And when
But
we do
that's a
this outreach, no matter who does it, isn't there a bit of a difference here? Because do we have any obligation to inform people that we're communicating with that there could be penalties in their contract for early termination? We didn't have to deal with that around
Yeah.
basic service, but it seems to me that there needs to be this extra caution, I guess.
Agreed.
And that's where I would ask Paul, if we were to want to send out some kind of a notification to those uncompetitive supply, would Mass Power Choice draft that notification for us, for Valley Green Energy?
Yes, no, absolutely. We could prepare a first draft of the communication for you.
And I mean, in looking at all of the possibilities, would Mass Power Choice be able to do a mailing if you are all receiving that information, that contact information?
Just thinking out loud. So I think what we would do, if you'd like us to do it for you, we would probably use a mail house to do it for us. We're not really set up to do it, but we do interact with mail houses around the supplier letters. So we could find someone to do it. We could get pricing for you if you want, from our mail house. We would just pass through what that cost is.
Mhm.
So I can explore both those things just to give you a sense of the numbers.
Great, thank you.
I mean, I think it would make sense to fund it from the VGE, like the 1 mil that we're collecting. So that kind of sets our budget for this mailing. I don't know if that's in the range of what would be required even.
And I would also think that I would prefer that such a mailing not come from municipalities, from Northampton, Amherst, or Pelham. I would rather it come from something that looks like VGE. It's coming from Valley Green Energy. And I think somebody, I think it was you, Paul, who said, yeah, there are some people who don't want their government in getting involved in their electricity choice. And so I think if we keep this Valley Green Energy, clean as Valley Green Energy, I would feel better about that.
I mean, I'd love to get some polling on that, because the other view is, here's this slick thing from someone offering me a good deal, and I've
Yeah.
seen good deals before. And at least in this case, you've got, well, your city's explaining, here's how we are working on your behalf.
Good point.
I don't know which one it is. Like, who this particular audience, who are already
Right.
to go for the competitive supply, maybe they're super savvy and, you know, and like they get it right away as soon as they know, or maybe they're, you know, anti-government oriented people. I don't know who they are.
In the past, we've assumed that having the town or city seal on it would make people pay attention and trust more. And VGE is not a known entity yet, and it does look kind of slick with our cool logo, you know, and it has this kind of generic sounding name. And people get solicited all the time.
But it's like, which one is it? Because honestly, I don't know if you've like read the op-eds in the Gazette. There's a pretty sizable contingent of people who basically think that the Northampton city government, not just speaking for Northampton, is like some sort of cabal that is out to harm people and you know, it's, I mean, we've kind of got MAGA of the left with our own little polarization here. So I don't know who this audience is.
Well, you know, we can do the best of both worlds, I
Yeah,
think, because Valley Green Energy is an entity that is created by 3 municipalities. And I think we can use this as another opportunity to educate people about what Valley Green Energy is, what its relationship is to the communities involved. And so we can have both, you know, we can have the communities, of course, are named, and Valley Green Energy is associated with that. So we're educating people, but you know, we can move on because once we get this information, we'll know we can talk about how we want to do this.
yeah, and I would just jump in to say that, you know, if, not speaking for you, Paul, but Mass Power Choice, who would be putting this together, would certainly include the municipalities, because that's originally how we've done it. That's actually how we need to continue branding it. And we'll just do the same thing moving forward. So I don't think we're gonna change what that looks like.
Right.
So,
Good.
you know, and it's got both, so it's kind of the best of both worlds, and the town logo is small enough that it doesn't come off as being like, you know, getting into people's business completely, but it's there to give other people confidence. And you know, certainly I took some calls. I had people show up at town hall very angry. Why is the town changing my electricity supply? I'm not okay with this, just going off the rails. You know, and so it's a trigger point for some people, but you know, it's like you can't, it's gonna be on both sides. It's just, this is what we're gonna do what we've done. And we'll just continue. And when we get the data, or however we can get the data, Paul, you will let us know. And we'll look at the pricing options and we'll go from there. So that can be, go ahead, Indra.
Oh, did did they get the current rates? Will it be the same rates that people are on now?
Yes.
And Paul, when is it? Is it next? Like, when would we go out to, you know, solicit RFPs for pricing again? When will that happen?
Give me 1 second and I'll just to look at our number.
Yeah, our contract expires in November 26.
Yeah,
So then what we would want to do is the early fall of 26 is when we would do it. We could look at spring of 26 and see how the prices look then. The better times of year usually spring and fall. Sometimes spring is better, sometimes fall is better, depends on the year. So I guess we would start looking in the spring and do it no later than just to be done by like September, October.
yeah, because I think we felt maybe, because we did it in the fall last time. And I think we felt like it would have been maybe more advantageous if we had done it in the spring. So maybe we want to definitely look in the springtime.
And
So-
we
You know,
can, go ahead.
I have a question that's related but unrelated. On the one hand, there is, you know, the rate changes that happen to basic service. that will be coming at some point. I don't exactly know what month they hit. I know they hit differently for National Grid versus Eversource. But there is also something in our paper today, and I know, Ben, I read yesterday about they're after you now as well, but in the paper, but who the hell is this guy, Ben Weil? Um, but there was also this article about a winter heat pump discount program that Eversource, National Grid, and the other one are offering, and it's something that comes off the distribution fee, not the so Valley Green Energy and other aggregations are not affected. But this is something that maybe in a way for us to, meaning Valley Green Energy, for us to sort of try to reach out to people in some way as part of an education plan. I mean, this is a big deal for people who have heat pumps. I think it's, if I read correctly, it's like 4 cents a kilowatt hour, which is, pretty significant. Anyway, I wanted to put that into the mix here, about outreach to our customers, if you will.
It's a good idea.
Yep.
Um,
We're doing our heat pump campaign in Amherst, and that's part of our next push in our information campaign. Information session is going to include information about that as well.
By the way, I called Eversource about it this morning.
Mhm.
Nothing. They can't tell me anything. They're waiting for some DPU filing, can't, have no information to offer.
I think that's partly why we're not
Yeah.
broadcasting it, because I don't feel like until we know for sure, I don't want to be sharing that information. It's just like, we've heard this is coming, but we don't know what it is. It's
But
more
when
of a
it does
question.
come, we should consider whether or not we want to, do some kind of outreach about it somehow or other. But anyway. Okay, what's next?
Okay, so let's see, Paul, was there anything else? For some reason, I feel like we had another topic, but I can't recall off the top of my head, so maybe that was
Yes.
all you had.
I don't think so. I think that's it for me, Stephanie.
Okay,
I just have one question.
Sure.
About the DPU report. I was kind of surprised that all the data was organized according to the 3 towns and that there was not even any mention of the name Valley Green Energy. Like there was it didn't appear as an entity in any way.
Yeah, so it's a Valley Green report. I guess we did it. But with regard to the individual data, so here's why. So we did it at the individual data by town because we have to match up with the DPU categorization, and they ask for the data individually by town. So I guess I'm remembering now as I'm talking, that wasn't so much a choice we made. That's how we were told to do it. The report is titled Valley Green Energy, and the narrative component, there are 2 pieces. There's a spreadsheet of numbers and then there's a narrative. The narrative is all about Valley Green as the entity. The spreadsheet, you're right, it's titled Valley Green, but it contains the data by town.
Paul, I do have one question for you, somewhat related to this whole effort. Andrew was just noting that there was some changes are happening at the DPU, and I wonder how that may affect Valley Green Energy in terms of the more progressive things that it was hoping to do down the road.
Yeah, so in a big picture there, the current mindset at the DPU is communities are free to go ahead and do pretty much whatever they want, as long as they're transparent about what they're doing and tell the program participants. So whereas there had been a tremendous amount of restriction on what aggregation programs could do and a requirement of getting utility DPU approval, that's no longer the case. So if anything, I think, we'd have to look at it case by case, but generally speaking, anything that sort of fits within the program broadly defined, you would be free to do just as long as you explained it to folks.
There was news just today, an hour ago, that Healy has changed two of the commissioners on the DPU.
Oh, which really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. So you're ahead of me. Who's out?
Van Nostrand
Oh, that's a shame.
and I forget the other's name. Ruben is still on. And they've done it because they want supposedly people who have expertise in energy affordability. In other words, they don't want the emphasis on climate goals. They want it on energy affordability. Because they're getting hammered, obviously. And I don't know. I'm quite upset about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a shame. I think that the chairman has really been fantastic. I hate to see him go.
But at least if it's right now, this shouldn't affect the things that we're wanting to do, at least.
I don't think so. I mean, I guess it's not impossible. They could change strategy, but as of now, you're free to do what you want.
All right, I don't have any other questions. Anybody else have any other questions for Paul before he leaves us?
Thank you, Paul.
Great, all
Well,
right,
thank you as always. We'll just get that information from you when
Thanks,
you
Paul.
you have it.
very good. Great to see you all. Take care.
Take care. Bye. Okay, so let me just make sure. Oh, we do have one member of the public, so because we skipped over public comment because there wasn't an opportunity in the beginning, I just wanted to maybe backtrack in our agenda a little bit. Let's see if Lydia Vernon-Jones, if you have any comments or questions for the group. You can just raise your hand. Okay, Lydia, you can go ahead and unmute.
No comment. Sorry.
Right. That's
Yeah.
okay, thank you. All right, okay, then moving on to the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes, or I can share them on screen?
I did. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second,
All right, and I will also approve. That was a very quick vote. Thank you, Bob. Let me just make a note here. All right, moving on to the draft scope of work for the Valley Green Energy Business Plan. I will actually share my screen. Just give me a moment to get that up.
So just a question while you're doing that, Stephanie, in reviewing it, there was a section that was in green font. Is that a newly suggested content?
I believe so. I mean, I'm
That's
gonna
what I thought.
very
Yeah.
quickly
I think
scroll.
both there was green and red, right? Is
Right,
there
I'm
red?
not seeing green.
It's
It's-
red. I only saw green, but I could have missed
Oh,
something.
okay. All
I don't know
right.
if the colors are showing up different on my screen, so I'm gonna share, just give me a second, I'll share with you all, and the colors look different to me, so. Okay, can you all see that?
Mhm.
Okay. I guess just let me know if, so I want to go over these changes, like, each change. And whether we agree, or if anyone has any comments or changes. So this first in the introduction, just the inclusion of, I think, I mean, to me, this comment, I think the way it's laid out is that if you look at the business plan, it does actually mention operations, so operations are ongoing, so I don't know if this clarification is necessary, but I'm fine if others want to include it.
I think it might be confusing to say a plan for startup and one for ongoing
Yeah,
operations.
I agree.
Yeah.
It should be one plan for success
Right.
Right.
that involves starting up and succeeding and operating.
Because I just felt like it
I'm
was.
in agreement with you, Stephanie. I think we could eliminate that blue comment there, including.
Okay, I'm gonna delete it then.
The point is that the amount needed for the startup obviously won't be needed for ongoing operations, or not all of it anyway. So just to make some differentiation, that's all.
I think it does say that, though. I think, if you further down, I think it does. That was the thing that I was thinking through when I was trying to put it together, is that there's the startup, but then there's the continuation of it. So I think that was kind of laid out that way. So, right, I'm gonna delete this. Oop. I'm gonna have to make a note. Um,
To a full or partial staff versus.
so this comment, the business plan will include a transition of the JPE to a full or partial staff versus broker-only model and scaling up to include other communities and additional revenue.
So my only quibble with this is like the word will, which is a little bit like shall. What if what if the person analyzes it and their analysis is actually the more you scale up, the more money you lose, or I'm just making this up, but like, what if it turns out that what's said in this sentence is not actually something that would be a successful business plan? I just like, I would think something more like the business plan should consider, or should,
Shall consider,
shall consider. Something,
Yeah, that's good.
it
that's
looks
fine.
at it, but accepts the possibility that our preconception is not necessarily where we end up.
consider including.
I must admit, my own ignorance here, I have no idea what all of this means. To a full or partial staff versus broker, I have no idea what this means. And I understand what scaling up to include other communities means. Although as Valley Green Energies, I don't know, is this JPE? Does this become Valley Green Energy then?
It becomes, it's Valley Green Alliance. And Valley Green Energy is just a program under the Valley Green Energy Alliance.
I see. Okay.
So this is, I don't know, I mean, at this point, like, having been doing this now and being in a different understanding of where I was when we first started, I very much value what Paul and his team bring, the knowledge that they bring to this. And I personally am not necessarily all in favor of veering away from using a broker, using them. I think they bring a lot to this. And so I don't know that I want a business plan that just gets rid of them.
Is that what this implies?
Well, that would
in
be
some- yeah. Go ahead, Adele, I'm sorry.
a full staff model versus, for example, there's at least one aggregation that uses a partial broker model. And they use the services that they want to use, and then not the services that they can handle by themselves.
Mhm.
What we have understood from the beginning is that there is there can be a very large savings by not using the full broker model. And that's a way in which the aggregation can get more revenue faster. And so that's been part of what local energy advocates folks have been advocating for since the beginning.
Right, and I would push back just a little bit in that it also depends on who you're getting in responses to your RFP, what you know about those suppliers. And I feel like that's where the knowledge base is so helpful. So I
Should
you
we
could
assume-
potentially, given, I'm sorry, I just
I'm sorry,
sort of
yeah.
finish this thought.
Hmm.
I feel like, the pricing, like, depending on who we get for the pricing, I know that some communities who have aggregations have at times sort of been stuck with pricing that didn't necessarily benefit them. So I don't know that it's like, it may save us some money for sure, but I don't know how much that would be, right? So I would go with I could see with the partial staff and a broker. That makes sense to me, but I don't know just getting rid of the broker.
Well, we're just saying shall consider full or this sentence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I think that we're assuming that since we're unclear about, like, we haven't done the research to say, like, here's the cost of a broker relative to somebody, here are the risks relative to of a staff doing it, and here's how they might not be fully as competent as the broker, whatever it is. I think we're hoping that whoever responds to this RFP will do that work for us, right? To figure out how would it play out.
Yep. This point too about scaling up to include other communities / additional revenue. I'm assuming that's just in providing those other communities. I guess this is the question in the business model, are communities paying to participate? So is the revenue only from them making the aggregation larger with more customer base,
Mhm.
but not necessarily
Right.
in paying? Okay, I just want to be clear about that. That point about communities having to pay to become part of the aggregation. Right, so moving on. So I think we're good with these changes then? Yes, right.
Mhm.
Next, changing accelerate energy efficiency versus reduce energy consumption.
The
Any,
thought being, we're just talking about electricity, not, gas or oil, and we want electricity to increase.
I'm fine unless anyone has another comment or feels differently.
Hmm. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Oh, mics have to come. Right, I don't know why I'm having trouble with this. Right. Right, facilitate the development and provision of locally owned and controlled renewable and other non-combusting energy resources, including a demonstration project in early years.
So that goes to our local option.
Right.
Hmm.
The local option, meaning that we create our own power company. Is that what that means?
It means, well, we had 4 options, only 3 of which are operational right now, right? We have our, you know, 3 options that we offer customers, but in the plan, in the aggregation, we included a 4th, which was a local option of, yeah, locally sourced energy.
Can I propose a different wording of this? To say facilitate the development and provision of renewable energy resources, including locally owned and controlled,
Yeah.
those that are locally owned and controlled.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I like that.
Yeah.
And so I think that was your idea, right, Adele, the including a demonstration project in early years?
Boy,
That's,
that's a big one.
Um,
well,
Yeah.
it's not, it's kind of loose. I wanted to put in within the first 5 years, but obviously if we were focusing on this, we would need a project, right?
I think, I'm trying, so this is, again, if we're developing the business plan. I'm just trying to think out loud here. So we're saying that. Do we want them to lay out what the development of that would look like? Or are we just saying we just want to state that within the first 5 years, the aggregation develops a demonstration project? And
well, I was in favor of changing the demonstration project from in 5 years to in early years. So that it's vaguer and gives us more time potentially.
But the question is, what are we asking, whoever
Yeah.
does this work for us? Do we want them to lay out some possibilities for an early demonstration project? Or just lay out that it is a possibility, yeah.
Why a demonstration project? Like, what's being demonstrated? Is there some new technology that's not, I mean, solar is a pretty well-established technology. Batteries are well-established and getting cheaper. Wind might, if you consider local to be in the hill towns, then, okay. Why not just say it, not other renewable energy resources as soon as, instead of putting this line as soon as financially responsible or something like that, as determined, in the business plan. Obviously, I'm not straight writing a good sentence there, but like the whole point is to ask somebody, hey, we think we'd like to actually start owning production. Is that a reasonable thing to do? Tell us how, and let them look at, like, well, here's what your revenue is, and here's the financing you could get, and you can do it or not.
The sentence as it exists without the words after including, it seems to me it already says it, right? We're facilitate the development and provision of renewable and other non-combusting energy resources, including those that are locally owned and controlled, period. It's, do we need to have, including a demonstration project in early years? If they're asking them to facilitate the development and provision of these renewable blah, 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 that are locally owned and controlled, do we need the other words?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
We can take the word demonstration out. I think we felt that having some sense of a possible timeline would be useful.
There's so many factors that go into that. I mean, the funding for me right now is the first thing. Like, is our aggregation gonna generate enough to do that? It's really like, projects need a lot of additional funding, so I'm just wondering, I
think
mean,
that's
we could
the
do some small
question.
scale, but I mean, I think we could it could be figured out. I don't think it has to be that the person spending their time that we're paying to develop this plan has to come up with like the first project for us. I sort of feel like it's probably gonna start small. I would think any of our first, locally owned and controlled projects are gonna be maybe on the smaller scale. And I don't think that's gonna be hard to do, really. I'm thinking like maybe rooftop projects, maybe because locally,
mean,
we don't have big options, really.
I mean, maybe, but like this is one where I feel like nobody here has the time to go and scout projects. And so if this business plan was able to say, looking at utility scale solar projects, and your financing, your income may not be enough to fund the project, but it might be enough with the prospect of selling the value produced by the project to finance it. And here's ways to finance it. And we just don't know that. So if they're able to say, not here, I'm going to develop you a project, but here is a pathway that would allow you to develop a project of X number of megawatts or kilowatts. And,
What about just saying that? So maybe just including a pathway to develop a demonstration project in early years.
I mean, I only say, I don't see any reason for the word demonstration. It's just a,
Okay, including a pathway to develop.
such projects as soon as possible or as soon as
And you're
practical.
talking about the locally owned and controlled.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That phrase is modifying the locally owned and controlled part, right? Yeah. That sounds good.
Mhm.
I mean, to me, the point is to scale up, get more revenue. So, and the purpose of doing that is to do this, to start sourcing locally.
so let me do this. Hold on, let me just look at the sentence because renewable and other non-combusting energy resources, including those that are locally owned and controlled, including a pathway to develop such projects in early
Mhm.
years. I'm gonna do a hyphen here.
Mhm.
Or I could just say such local projects, so that references that it's local.
Mhm.
How's that?
Mhm.
You all okay with is that okay?
Yep.
Adele, do you feel okay with that?
You have the word including twice, but
Yeah.
otherwise, I'm fine with it. Thank you.
All right, let me look at,
So is it the case that it is the goal of JPE to facilitate development and provision of renewable and non-combusting energy sources that are not locally owned and controlled? Is that still a goal?
To do,
Would you say that again?
So if if the goal is only to develop locally owned and controlled, we can frame it as facilitate the development and provision of locally owned and controlled renewable energy resources, including a pathway. And that means that it is not a particular goal of this JPE to develop renewables broadly, say ones that are not in our load zones or whatever. If that's the case, you can just move that phrase. But if in fact we've got two goals, renewables generally and locally owned renewables especially, then we need to separate them.
There is
Well, I
the
think
case.
we have all four options, so the one option does focus on that, but the others don't.
I
Okay.
don't
I
think
think
it's,
the JPE would not use its resources to develop renewable resources that are not in our local communities.
Well, there is that Cambridge example where they decided we could contribute to the development of renewable resources in a grid that isn't already doing that, and have, some control and ownership of it, and offload the, I guess, RECs. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but there was some, analysis of, maybe it doesn't have to be in our hometown. It could be elsewhere and actually make perhaps a bigger difference because it accelerates the market in another market.
True, but that could be done later after the RFP has been applied for, right? I mean, the JPE could decide that at some point in the future. But I don't know why we would want the RFP respondent to think about that.
Quite true. Yeah, I think that we're just talking about locally owned and controlled in this bullet.
So in that case, just to simplify, this is just
Right.
like sentence structuring to avoid using the word including twice. Just take locally owned and controlled and put it before renewable.
Ben, I
And then-
changed it. Can you read what it says now? Because I did take out the second.
Oh, I see. It's a different way of doing it. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, that's great. I'd put a space between resources and including, but other than that, it's great. I will note, and maybe it's not the case, but none of these goals include energy affordability for our communities. I mean, I do think that just from a practical standpoint, unless we want everyone to opt out, we have to have a goal that keeps electricity affordable.
I agree. Is that, like, I'm thinking that's part of what the locally owned and controlled might?
I mean, not necessarily. It might be way more expensive to build a resource here than to just procure it. And I mean, from a practical standpoint, as long as it's in the New England power pool, it doesn't matter where it is. It's being
Is that
dispatched.
listed in our aggregation plan as, does any of this, is this listed in our aggregation plan as a goal? I don't know.
I think so. This is
but-
just the sort of overview of Mm. So Ben, how would you want to propose to phrase that? I'm just sorry, I'm jumping ahead, but I'm trying to see if there's any reference to that elsewhere.
Yeah, I see everywhere that it's talking about the financials and how to have this JPE function and get, how to operate. But all of that has to be constrained just from a practical standpoint by the need to keep prices competitive. I mean,
This isn't just,
inherently-
so again, this is the JPE, it's not just the aggregation, right? So,
Right.
I mean, we're getting this is where sometimes talking about these two things get very
Agreed.
overlapped and enmeshed and it confuses things. I think we're talking about the JPE, which is sort of the umbrella effort. So in terms of the pricing for the aggregation, I kind of feel like we deal with that with the aggregation itself. So I
Okay.
don't think we need to focus on that, but the reason
Good.
why this has to include the development of these resources is because we don't have a local option right now in Valley Green Energy because it doesn't exist. So this
Right.
is creating the existence of that. But I don't think we need to get into the pricing because that's under the aggregation.
Gotcha.
Is that
Okay.
clear?
Yep.
Okay,
That
so,
makes sense.
all right, good. So can we move on from this then? Are we,
Yes.
and
I
I don't significantly, I just don't, it doesn't really matter, I guess, one way or the other, but I don't,
Unless you're going to quantify what you mean by significantly, it's just an added word.
yeah, I just feel like it's just a word that might make it more confusing to develop the plan. Is that okay? Are we okay about removing that?
Mhm. I am.
Bob, are you
Mhm.
still with us? Okay,
Okay.
all right. Let me jump ahead. Sorry if I'm giving anyone motion sickness. All right, financials, identification of financial cost. So again, I don't understand why losing establish and replacing with startup and then adding ongoing in the next. I mean, I feel like establishing something and then operations of that are this pretty much,
It's the same.
they're the same thing.
Why are
But-
they the same?
It's clarifying what that means.
I don't,
I mean,
Arguing over two words that mean the same thing, start up and establish.
Yeah.
To establish something, you have to
Oh,
start it.
yeah, no, I thought you said startup meant the same as ongoing.
no, I'm saying that why lose establish to put it, as, use a startup?
Yeah, I guess I find established to be more all encompassing. And people are pretty used to using the phrase startup. But yeah, does it matter?
It doesn't matter to me.
me.
If it doesn't matter to anybody, I would definitely prefer the word startup.
Then let's just take that. An identification of ongoing operational costs. Identification of operational costs. I don't understand the need for the clarification of ongoing.
That just
Operational
means,
costs are what they are. It's not just starting, I mean, you're talking about establishing a business and then identifying the operational costs of the business. So I don't think,
yeah, that to me, it doesn't matter. It's just trying to make it very clear that it's different from startup.
yeah, I think, I just think ongoing to me is a little bit confusing. That's just to me, but anybody else? I'll go with the majority vote here.
I don't think it adds anything. It's another one where ongoing and operational are.
Yeah, they're like the same.
enough.
Agreed.
I'm gonna get rid of ongoing. Cause I do feel like it's just more words. All right. Okay, identification of projected revenue using the JPE's ability to issue green bonds, scaling up to add other member communities, transitioning to a full or partial staff versus broker-only model, reserving 2 mills rather than 1 from the cost of electricity. Some of this, I feel like this is very relevant to, like, this to me feels relevant to the aggregation. And I know it has implications here, but I think this is where it starts confusing the two things.
So let me just ask a question here, because this raises an interesting question for me. If Valley Green Energy is essentially a subsumed project under this JPE, which is the way I understood you all talking about it,
Mhm.
and therefore the JPE becomes the governing body for Valley Green Energy, if I understand this correctly.
Mhm.
And the JPE has various goals and visions and what have you. And at some point they say, hey, we are going to raise the rate so that we're collecting 2 mills because we need it for these other projects, et cetera, et cetera. I assume that then becomes a decision that the JPE board could make that affects the rate that ratepayers would be paying. Am I accurate in the way I've
That
just?
is accurate. That is accurate.
Okay. So in a way, if one of our goals with Valley Green Energy is to provide green alternatives at as reasonable a price as can be gotten and as stable a price as can be gotten for ratepayers, so that we can green up our grid, if you will, then there could be a conflict here, because if the JPE wants to expand to do something else or what have you, some project, and they need more revenue, and they say, well, this is one place we can get it. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I mean, I'm a little concerned about losing the governance control of Valley Green Energy to a body that has a bigger, a bigger mandate, has other mandates, I should say, and that, Valley Green Energy becomes a revenue source for it, and therefore they have the ability to make decisions like this. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I'm a little concerned about that.
Anybody else have a comment about this?
Well, the JPE is made up only of the member communities. And I think that the point I thought you were going to make was we don't need that bullet point, because it is something the JPE board could decide at any point.
Well,
And
that's
it's not
good.
something that needs to be analyzed, you add a mill and you get more money. So
Yeah, and that was my point when I made that comment.
yeah,
And it's
But-
just confusing.
yeah. But the idea that the JPE becomes a different entity, it has have some, independence in a way. And one of the reasons why we're so keen on it is that it is more responsive to the community, because of community representation in the governance of it. Not that we don't have influence here, but it's written in to the JPE description. But also, the goal of stable pricing is written into the JPE, the document that we created a couple of years ago.
So
That I assume that, whoever does this work we'll be referring to a lot.
Well, first of all, I agree with Andrea that we don't need the reserving 2 mills rather than one, that we don't need to do that, that could be eliminated. But, you know, I'm just stating a whole other concern, not related, if you will, to what we're doing here in editing this. But now that I'm beginning to understand more fully the structure, you know, that we're talking about here with the JPE, there's a little cause for concern on my part, but let's keep going here. But I agree,
Well-
that we don't need to have that reserve 2 mills because the JPE can do that anytime.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why, I guess that's the point I was trying to make, is that's really more like a JPE, you know, specifically a Valley Green Energy discussion that can happen anytime. So we can, Andrew, you're okay with losing that? I can't remember if that was your comment. Yeah, okay. So lose that. Can we go backwards though? The JP's ability to issue green bonds. We good with keeping, I'm fine with that.
I mean, I'm okay with keeping any of those because these are among the possible things that this business plan respondent may come up with. They may come up with other things that we haven't thought of.
Yeah, I would just say that the 2 mills thing, Paul Gromer already offered us, if you recall. We already had a discussion once about whether we wanted to go that route. And on the issue of, you know, one governance versus another, the municipalities are going to appoint the board members of the JPE, just like they appointed the members of the Valley Green Energy.
They're not,
Um,
I don't feel we need to, I don't feel like I need to debate.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
okay, you know, I do have, I've stated my concern and I'm okay. We're going forward with this thing. I do not understand the identification of potential legal liability of member communities without forming a JPE. I'm not sure I understand what that means.
And I feel like that's part of the business plan, right? Like the idea of the business plan is to tell us how we can form this, what it can offer us. And there's that whole section, what is it called?
The SWOT analysis?
SWOT analysis.
Yeah, it's right
So
next.
I feel like the SWOT analysis, I don't know that this is necessary. I feel like it's to, you know,
I don't know what it means. Identification of potential legal liability of member communities without
Yeah.
forming a JPE. I just don't understand what the sentence implies.
The
It's-
reason for forming a JPE is that it allows the communities who join the JPE to avoid legal liability.
so I guess,
Yeah,
Bob,
well,
we
yeah.
could continue as we are right now as communities that are all part of Valley Green Energy, and we don't have this whole big joint power entity that's a whole separate business. We could just simply continue as an aggregation, and other communities could join on as part of that aggregation. The idea originally that was brought forth was to create this joint powers entity so that Valley Green Energy could be a program that could sort of, especially with an additional mill or two, help fund doing programming within the communities.
No, I get all that, Stephanie. What I'm worried about, not worried, what I don't understand is the wording here.
Yeah,
It seems to me that maybe it would be clearer to me anyway, identification of, if this is what you mean, legal liability of member communities, if we don't form a JPE. Is that what this is implying, this sentence?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
Okay.
maybe,
yes.
Because the way it's written now, I
A
just don't
couple of
understand it.
things that the JPE legislation. There are a couple of things in the JPE legislation that are advantageous. One is that it allows municipalities to avoid legal liability. Another is that it gives the ability to issue bonds. So those are two big advantages that that we would want the person to look at, definitely.
So again, all I'm trying to do is to clarify this sentence.
I mean, they could be listed.
Darcy, Bob's concern is not the content, it's how, whether it's communicated in this
Oh.
sense.
Yeah, the word without forming a JPE is if we don't form a JPE.
It's,
I think
pretty,
it's just clearer that what we're asking for here. What is our legal liability if we don't form a JPE is what is my understanding of what this is trying to convey.
Yes.
It is, it is. Well, you could say under a JPE or not forming a JPE. If it sounds biased, if that's what you're saying.
Well, the way it's written,
it
the
is
way I've
biased.
drafted it now is clearer to me. If that's what your intention is. It's clearer to me.
Is this, is this wording okay, Bob? Like, does that make,
For me, it's okay, but I don't know that it is for Darcy.
Oh, I can't see it. Wait a minute. Let's see.
If a JPE is not formed is the last part of the sentence.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, good.
So what, but I would also want to know the potential legal liability of member communities if a JPE is formed.
why don't we just say, what are the potential legal liabilities for member
Yeah.
communities?
That's-
Under,
Or identification of potential legal liabilities of member communities, really, period,
Period.
full stop.
If
exactly.
JPE is formed or not formed. Okay, whatever. Yeah.
It's just like since
But the
it's we don't
JPE
know.
legislation calls for a lack of legal liability for a JPE.
No,
So
for
useful-
municipalities as a part
Right.
of the JPE.
But the useful thing about having someone write this business plan for us and identify potential legal liabilities under a variety of circumstances is that we get that spelled out for us
Yeah. Yeah.
with like some footnotes where we can be very clear on like, so what is our legal liability in this scenario? And if we don't do this, are we exposed? So that we can actually be responsible in decision making going forward to protect our communities.
So in that way, we can just leave it at the end of member communities.
Period. Yeah.
That's where I lean. Identification of potential legal liability for community members.
No, I think
Well,
member
member-
communities.
No,
of
Yeah.
member communities.
Member communities is perfect that way, I think.
Yeah. You
Just
just-
leave it like that.
Yep.
That's, I agree as well. That's language, and I don't
That's
know
fine.
Darcy. Is that okay? All right,
yeah,
we only have a few minutes left, so if people can give can people give a few more minutes just to get through, or maybe we're
Yeah,
done?
yeah, let's do it.
Oh, we're done. That was it.
Yeah, we're done.
Woohoo.
So, all right, cool.
Okay.
I'm just gonna
Let's
save
let
it.
it rip.
could you,
Thank you all.
I don't know how can we attach this to the minutes somehow, or,
It'll be in the packet. It'll be, I can put both the corrected version. I'll put the corrected version in the meeting packet. It isn't online now, but I can put a packet online.
and the packet for this meeting?
Yes,
Okay,
I haven't had the packets up, but I'll get it. I'll get this one up for sure. So, okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay. I think I just want to make sure we get through. Before we go, are there any other quick updates from LEA?
we are planning a presentation on, potentially on fundraising in September or October. We asked, Paul Mark, and we aren't sure of a date yet on the Green Bank legislation.
Okay. All right, great. Anything else? Okay, well, we're right on time. Our next meeting is September 18th. Hopefully we will have some pricing information by then. I can't guarantee it, but if I get it, then we can make that an agenda item. Is there anything else in particular that folks want for an agenda item?
Seems like we should have an update from Paul, at least in writing, about the third party people, right? Because we actually asked him a long time ago for that.
I think that was, well, when I said pricing, I was referring to the mailing for the third
Oh.
party.
Oh.
So that was basically the third party update.
Oh, okay.
And then anything else? You can always send them to me. So our next meeting is September 18th. It's a Thursday at 1 o'clock. So thank you all so much. That was great. Good efficient work. Thank you. All right. Have a great month. See you soon.
Okay.
Bye.